So guys, guess what the U.S. Treasury's been up to this past month? They've been coming up with this crafty little scam where they're going to, and I quote, force all U.S. banks to use the discount window at least once per year. Now, here, let me give you a little tutorial on what the discount window is. That's basically the tool that is used when banks in the United States are in trouble and need to borrow money at lower interest. The discount window. Now, first question you might ask, why are they doing this? What's the incentive? So this is speculation because even the, people who do this for a living, they're speculating onto why this is going on. But the most logical reason is because there's always been a negative stigma around using the discount window because banks are all about faith. If people lose faith in their bank, there's going to be a bank run. You're going to go withdraw your money and the bank's going to be insolvent. So whenever a bank historically would use the discount window, people would get nervous, people would lose faith in the bank. And look at when this is happening, the timing of when this is happening. So last year, we had the bank crisis. SVB went insolvent, so did First Republic, and then Signature Bank got into trouble too. Now what did the Fed do? They opened up what was called the Bank Term Funding Program, which would buy the devalued bonds from the bank at face value, which is the reason these banks were getting into trouble. They bought bonds at, say, $100, and when rates go up, the price of the bond goes down, and when people withdraw money from the bank has to liquidate their bonds to offset that money that's being taken out. But when you have to sell your bonds at a loss, you realize that loss, and then boom, you are insolvent. So what the Fed did is said, okay, yes, your bonds lost money, but us, the Federal Reserve, we will give you the full face value of your bonds you bought them for so that you don't run into that problem. So that'd be like if you go on the Robinhood app, buy Apple stock for $100, it goes to $30. You're like, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. Now I can't go buy X, Y, and Z. The Federal Reserve just said to all of us normal people, hey, don't worry about it. You messed up there, but we'll give you the full $100 back that you bought that stock for because you need it. So that's what the Federal Reserve has been doing for the banks this past year. But that program, as I mentioned last week, is being abused now because since rates are going down, the banks are able to make what's called an arbitrage on this program that they're doing. So they're basically able to borrow money, then put it at the Federal Reserve and make more money than they're being charged for to borrow it. So the Federal Reserve is shutting that down. They're letting this program end in March. If you want to know more about the things I talk about, if you feel I leave questions unanswered, if you want to ask specific questions, I encourage you to connect with me on Minnect, the app that's absolutely taking the world by storm right now. And I believe that's why we're suddenly hearing about this new thing where they're going to force banks to use the discount window at least once per year because it's going to hide the banks that are in distress. Because if everybody needs to use it, you're not going to be able to tell who's actually in trouble. So that's really the biggest thing that the banks are worried about is having faith in them because the Federal Reserve has a million tricks that they could do to put money where it needs to be so that the banks don't go insolvent on paper. But faith in the bank is what you cannot control. So once that goes, it's over, as we've seen in the past with Lehman Brothers, with Silicon Valley, with First Republic. When the faith goes in the bank, that's when the bank run happens. That's when the bank goes insolvent. So they're creating this big mirage of every bank having to use the discount window, which is basically, the distress sign. So now we're not going to be able to tell which banks are in trouble, and the Fed loves that. To really top it off, the reasons I've heard it as the explainer for this is so that there's no confusion in how to use the program. So the banks are familiar with using the discount window if they ever need to do it. So whenever there's a reason that weak behind a new government program, you could tell there's a lot more to it. And I feel about 85% sure that what I just laid out is the way things are going down. But hey, if you know something I don't know, if you see a perspective that I might be missing here, please let me know. When you get into macroeconomics at a level this deep, it's foolish to assume that you're completely right. So definitely not assuming I'm right. I'm speculating here. But this is the best deducement that I've come up with so far from what I've looked at. So feel free. Let me know in the comments if you see this differently. But interesting times ahead. This is all really coming apart because we're in a fourth turning, and we're going to see the society collapse and something build better up in its place in the next 7 years. So don't freak out. It's normal, but fireworks will go off pretty soon. Love you. God bless.